To mark Black History Month, historian Joe Carvalho, Republican editor and historian Wayne Phaneuf, and LuJuana Hood of the Pan-African Historical Museum sat down with Carolee McGrath to look at the impact and importance of Black history right here in our region.
Springfield was one of the key points in the North where people could come to. We were over the border from Connecticut, which we had eliminated slavery by law earlier than the state of Connecticut, and also from New York. New York had slavery until 1828 on the books. People have no idea how late that was. We stopped it in 1780. And so people came to our town and then city, and that's where there were jobs. There were also where churches were providing access, and then we were also the location of the first African-American church in Western Mass, which would make it really the first African-American institution. So people had a place to go to with leadership and freedom to speak, and sort of a social agency to provide access to where they would come to live. And that was true until the Fugitive Slave Act.
I know that we had talked about this a little bit, that the role that Wilbraham played, small town, right next to Springfield. Tell us a little bit about that, the academy there, which is Wilbraham Munson, of course, and what role Wilbraham played.
Yeah, Wilbraham, in my opinion, is a giant because it's such a small little place. But both the town and the school are involved in the Underground Railroad. Now, when you think about the town, there's a merchant there by the name of John Coughlin, who's a shoe merchant. How can John Coughlin be sending money to Windsor, Ontario, Canada, okay, to a man by the name of Henry Woods, who's a fugitive slave, and he's helping to sponsor the first Black newspaper in Ontario called The Fugitive's Voice, okay? He's coming out of Wilbraham. And then you have the school where they've produced some of the greatest African Americans in the world, James Lindsay Smith, Prince Thomas E. Basalo, John Jefferson Smallwood, who is the grandson of Nat Turner.
People who are from Springfield probably don't know that and don't realize the rich history that we have. I know, Joe, you and Wayne are working on another book on Union Station. Of course, that's the railroad. But tell us the early connection to the Underground Railroad with that.
Well, Wayne wanted to make sure that when we did this book on the Union Station that's being reopened very soon, goes right back to the very roots, the very beginning of railroading. But the nexus between railroading and the Underground Railroad really comes to play in Springfield, where we had our first station. The current station is the fourth one. But the first station and the second station were in 1841, then 1851, and they were a time when it became the new way in which to escape from the South. If you could slip aboard a train or follow the train tracks, you ended up in Springfield. And Springfield, John Brown came to Springfield, had a warehouse right along the railroad, and with Thomas, who was one of the early founders of the African American Church, which is now St. John's Congregational Church, they used that warehouse to hide out people who came off the train. In fact, if you looked in the Springfield paper, they never mentioned anything at the time, but the Westfield newspaper kept saying, "We heard another rumor that escaped slaves just came to Springfield." They're telling the story. And of course, and Wayne's done research on the Massasoit House, which became another place where escaped slaves could hide from any slave catchers. Wayne?
Yeah, the cool thing about the Massasoit House is it was built in the early 1840s. When the railroad came through, they built the Massasoit House to be part of the, get the traffic from the railroad. The two brothers, the Chapin brothers that ran the Massasoit House were ardent abolitionists. So they started taking in escaped slaves. The Massasoit House still exists behind the facade of the Paramount building. If you go up onto the top floors, you can see the rooms of the Massasoit Hotel with the marble fireplaces and things like that. So that building is still there, even though everybody thinks it's the Paramount.
So you have some really interesting programs for young people, which I think is so important, to take them out and really to live this history. Tell us what you have coming up in the spring.
Well, we have the Underground Railroad Walk. And we work with schools, and we have a program on Saturday, every third Saturday that we do. We start you off with a great country breakfast, and then we'll show you a video of Sojourner Truth. People don't know we're the ones that introduced Sojourner Truth to Florence. Springfield did. And then at 11 o'clock, because the program starts at 10, we'll take you outside and you'll see the Underground Railroad, and you'll meet our actors who are reenacting very famous African Americans in the city.
And the museum's located right on Main Street, 1500
We're
Main?
at 1500 Main Street inside Tower Square.
Okay, Joe, LuJuana, and Wayne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Right.